every single car we analyzed on the last episode actually sold. Does that mean there is a spike in demand for classic and collector cars on Bring a Trailer? Or have sellers just finally figured out that they need to get real and they've come to Jesus and they're selling their cars? We're going to talk about that, plus make some new predictions. This is Bid Nerds. The bidding starts now. Bid Nerds is your YouTube car game show. Yep, that means it's time for a live Bid Nerds. It's Sunday night. I'm all bundled up in here because the AC's still on. We don't know why. My name is John Polnick. I am in the Container Park in downtown Las Vegas in the Rummy Studio, along with my partner, Michael Deeb, in San Francisco. How you doing, Michael Deeb? It's a brand new show and a brand new night. Brand new week. It's Sunday.
It is, man. It's great to be on. Say hi to the nerds. Fleet Week in San Francisco, Blue Angels. We don't talk about the weather, but it was awful here today. It was sunny and buggy. I am happy to be enclosed in my little tiny studio doing Bid Nerds with all of you crazy people. Tonight's show is going to be a lot of fun. Let's go.
Gonna be a banger. All right, the big question tonight. Look, we looked at everything, all the cars that we talked about on Wednesday. We do the show twice a week. For those of you who are new to the show, we go live every Wednesday and Sunday night at 6:30 Pacific time. This is a live show, so that's why it's so clunky and terrible. We keep screwing everything up because it's live, man. You do a live show, see how it works.
Yeah.
Look, we make predictions on these cars. We analyze listings on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, P-Car Market, and more. And it's not often that all the cars we talk about actually sell. A lot of times there's failures to sell, reserves aren't met, all kinds of things cause cars not to sell. And I think that the most common problem with car listings lately aren't the cars. It's not about demand. It's not whether or not there's money in the economy. I think it's that the sellers just have not caught on that this is not 2023 or certainly not 2022 when things were just crazy and demand was through the roof. Things have cooled off, but that doesn't mean that these classic and collector cars aren't still selling and aren't still bringing really good money. So let's get to the cars that we talked about on the last episode and see if we can kind of unweave this thing, and make sure you guys stick around to the middle of the show. We'll analyze these first listings and then we'll get to all new listings and we'll make predictions about those, and you guys can play along. Hit that thumbs up and like and subscribe and all those YouTube things. Let's get to it. Michael D., what was the first car we analyzed on the last episode?
All right, JP, circling back to our 2002 Mercedes-Benz E430 sedan that was submitted to the Bid Nerds by our friend Chris Carbine down at Carbine Motor Cars in New Orleans, Louisiana. Our car is on Cars and Bids, showing just 65,000 original miles from new. And of course, it is, pandering to the host, Chris Carbine's own listing. This is a Carbine Motor Cars vehicle that is for sale on Cars and Bids, and he had the cojones to run it no reserve. So when you want to talk about getting real, there is nothing to untangle with this listing. When you just raw dog it and go no reserve, you are confident that the car is good. You're confident in the market, and I think you're also got to have a little bit of confidence that the Bid Nerds mojo is going to help see you through. I know when we were looking at the car, JP, it was only at, I can't remember, but it was like really low, like $3,000 or $4,000. And I could tell, having, words with Chris before we went live, that he was starting to get just a little puckered under there, knowing that the car was going to sell the very next day, JP. But I bid with my heart, saying that, look, this car on paper should be worth about $8,430. That's what this car should be worth. We were all just sweating, not because it needed to go so far in the final day, but that it was on Cars and Bids, and we just don't see a lot of fights at the hammer on Cars and Bids. And I will pound the desk until they change their protocol. I think it's because their running clock to reset the auction is too short a duration of time. I think they should add 30 more seconds to it, and they'll get much more exciting finishes. But when you're not near your hoped investment in the car, and you're running no reserve, and you're waiting for a fight that rarely happens on Cars and Bids, it's understandable why Chris was worried. So JP, my bid was $8,430. You parked yours right underneath mine at $8,000. Apparently Chris Carbine had nothing to worry about because the hammer was a both of us. $8,500, bam, where it sold on 34 bids. Very good action. Carbine is indeed happy and satisfied with that number. JP, you and I, after really taking a little deep dive on this car, loved how clean it was. You know, E430 sedans aren't really our bag as far as doing the show. We do more special interest cars. But man, if you are, looking for a car to drive, this car's got a lot of life left in it. It's still a looker. And the interior of this car was spotless. It's also a V8, and I'd say at $8,500, that's fair value for the car because they're soft in the secondary market. But go show me a cleaner, nicer, better driving, more reliable car for even twice that money, JP. If I gave you $17,000 and told you to bring me a better car, it might take you a while before you could find one. So what do you think about that result? Did Carbine just have nothing to worry about? Or were you as surprised that the car did as well in the final minutes as I was?
I think I said on the last episode, I was ready to get on a plane if that car at no reserve was anything less than $6,000. I was buying it, and I was ready to have a muffaletta sandwich in the French Quarter with our friend Chris, and maybe even road trip this thing home because these just eat up the miles. Yeah. Look, there's no new car that you can buy, honestly, that's as nice as this. I mean, I just hate modern cars generally. So the fact that you can get something like this for under $10,000 with 65,000 miles, this thing's going to be super reliable, like you said. And I mean, what are you going to get for $10,000? A used Honda Accord or a Camry or something like that? How's Snoresville? This car, doesn't have all the electronic accoutrement that modern cars have. It's not spying on you. It's not sending your data to the insurance company and telling them that you're speeding or going through the whatever. It's not telling anybody that you're falling asleep at the wheel. It's not driving anywhere, but it still has all that luxury that you just can't get in a brand new car. There's no new car. I don't care. You spend $300,000 or even more for Mercedes right now, and I defy you to find something that rides as nice as a car like this. So yeah, I wanted it. I was a little disappointed that this car did so well, even though I'm very happy for our friend Chris that it did. I was hoping that maybe I could snatch this thing up and hang out with him. Didn't happen. Congrats to Carbine Motors for getting this car out the door. All right, and by the way, there was a Yahtzee. The Spud Syndicate does it again. Randy got this thing exactly right at $8,500 as usual. Woo-hoo! The Nerd Herd doing it better than the nerds themselves. Again, welcome to those of you who are watching the show. If you're watching this live and this is your first time, get over in the chat right now. Go introduce yourself in there. I don't even care if you give us the thumbs up. I don't care if you subscribe. I don't care if you like the show. Introduce yourself in the live chat right now and introduce yourself to the Nerd Herd. You will make friends in there. They're way better people in the Nerd Herd than there are on screen right now. So go hang out with them and join us for the rest of the show. Okay, what was the next car that we analyzed on the list? And will it help us? I mean, look, Chris didn't even have a reserve. He just got real. He's like, you know what? I'm selling this thing. The only way I'm going to sell this thing is go no reserve, and it worked out for him. What was the next car on the list, Michael D?
All right, JP, our poster car from the last show was a 1977 Porsche 930 Turbo Carrera running no reserve on Bring a Trailer with just 4,300 miles from new. JP, this is a documented one-owner car until it was acquired by Silver Arrow Cars Limited or whoever is consigning it with them. I think Silver Arrow bought it out of a collection of 80 cars. And then, of course, they gave this car a little sprucing up, took some incredible photos of the car, some great studio shots, and have brought the car back to market. JP, this is like as close to new for this generation of car. This is the 3-liter pre-intercooler turbos. These were the first of the breed. I mean, it even has the window sticker, and it looks like it's in perfect condition. This is as collectible as they come. Now, JP, when we started to get into the numbers for this car, I documented that there are 2 cars that have sold over the last 2 years that had more miles than this one of them coming out of the white collection in Houston. And both of those sold for $390,000. I thought this car, being a real one owner and having less miles, even half the miles of the lowest mile of those two $400,000 cars, would bring similar money. So my bid was $390,930. JP, you took about 40 grand off of that and went $350,930. So the question is, are buyers getting real? Are they ready to sell out? John, it is worth noting that our car hammered for just $305,930, only 20 bids. But the big news is that the car sold for that. If you would have asked me when we were bidding on the car that if it only got to 300, would it sell? I would have said for sure, no way that this car sells. Seeing two comps that weren't as good as this for close to 400 grand, and knowing how blue chip this era of cars is, I thought for sure this guy would be looking for 350 or more. And so for it to hammer at 305 and he took it, tells me that they were pretty realistic about the car and about the value and about today's market. And JP, my initial reaction to that is that the car was truly really well bought. I'd say that the buyer is the winner here. I'm sure Silver Arrows made the money on it, but probably not as much as they had hoped or thought. Oh, I should also say, JP, this car was running no reserve. So they were very realistic about it. I wonder if they're disappointed with that number. I would suspect they are because, again, in my heart, in my body, I think that this car is worth more money. So I'd say it's really well bought. And over the next run of high market and high collectors, this car could come back to market and bring 150 grand more than what it was just purchased for here. JP, do you echo those sentiments, or do you think that that's just a sign of the times and that's really all it's worth?
Yeah, I think things are definitely coming down significantly. I do think this car was well bought. My bid was based on trying to win against you, so I bid a little higher than I actually thought it would bring. In my gut, I was kind of going, I don't know if this thing's going to break 300, but I am with you. I wouldn't have thought that it would sell at such a low number. I am glad to see that this seller was realistic, get the car down the road. Do we think that this is going to show up at Sotheby's or one of the big car auctions this summer for a significant bump?
So the next one that's on the horizon, JP, would be Barrett Jackson and RM Sotheby's in Scottsdale, Arizona in January. I think that's too soon. You've got Amelia Island
I'm gonna hop in there. That's what I mean. I mean, it seems like if you really want to take advantage of this low purchase, if you try to immediately bring it to market, people are going to be like, nah, they have a comp that they can refer it to. But if you wait until this summer, when people are excited in the moment, it's summertime, is that a better
year from now? Yeah, Monterey next year, this car could come back to one of the big tents, Gooding, Broad Arrow, or Sotheby's, and I would see it bringing 400 or more.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony is saying that Car Week numbers were down in general, and I think across the board they were, but there were still records for some cars. So it throws the average off. So overall, it's one of those things. I mean, but that's why we try to track this stuff. There's so much nuance to it. This is one of those cars, this 930 here, that, I mean, this is a pure collector car. This is pure speculation. No one is buying this car to drive it. It's only got, hardly any miles on it. So this car is just a museum piece. So that really is a specific type of buyer. And I just don't see that type of buyer really paying attention to the market in October during an election year. I just don't think they're paying attention to these sorts of things. But what do you guys think? Let us know what you think of the results of this 930 Turbo. Was that well bought? Do you think we're going to see it up for sale in an auction sooner rather than later because they bought it so cheap and they're going to try to flip it soon? Or do we think someone's going to have to sit on this thing for a while in order to make the big money? Let us know in the comments. All right. Sellers figuring it out. They're coming to Jesus. These guys sold this amazing 930 for that low number. What was the other car that we talked about in the last episode?
JP, we got two more cars to cover. Let's start with the Porsche. This is a 1974 Porsche 911 Cabriolet that has been converted to look like a 993 turbo cab. So it's a wide body. It's cabriolet. It's got 18-inch wheels. It's got a G50 gearbox. And then, JP, somebody took the 3-liter motor, presumably out of an SC, and slapped twin turbochargers on it, probably squeezing 350 horsepower out of this thing. I mean, JP, this is a true modified Frankenstein car. However, at a glance, it looks like one of the rarest cars in the world. I think Porsche only documented making 2 or 3 authentic 993 turbo cabriolets, a model they essentially never produced. They made 2 of those cars, probably for, the Sultan and somebody in the German and the Porsche family. But this car, like, the execution of this car looks really good. I mean, like, at a glance, you would just think that's a 993 cab. You would never think it's a 74, and you would never expect it to have twin turbos under there. So really neat car, but what would the value of something like this be? And was this car running no reserve? It was not. So this was always gonna be a little bit dicey. JP, I gave us a number on this car. I opened the bidding at $53,000. Just looking at all the parts and the labor that went into this thing, JP, that number would be criminal if it sold for that. You took the over at 56 and took all the blue sky above you, and that was the smart play. Our car hammered for $67,001, which I still think is cheap. However, it sold for that number. And John, it was $67,000 on 49 bids, sold to the highest bidder right there. Now that we know what that car is worth, given your circumstance, if you could move the 2 cars that you would like to, that you have right now, if you could move them out of there and you had an empty garage, would you buy that car for $67,000? Because I got a sneaky suspicion I know the answer to this question.
Yeah, I don't know. It's certainly it definitely kind of fits me. It's weird, it's bonkers, and it's a convertible and it's wide body. But I'm just not a big turbo fan, and especially not a fan of a turbo that doesn't have much history. We really don't know how well this powertrain is sorted out. There are little things that if you want to scare JP away from buying your car, show me that you don't know how to drive in your driving video and drive like an R word, that one hand on the wheel, ripping through the gears, just doing these hard ass pulls for no really good reason, and then missing a shift, and not recording the video. Kudos for authenticity, I guess, not trying to cover up that you suck at driving a car. But I just feel like this one, there's a lot to like about it from a clone, right? From a 993 cab wide body turbo. They did a lot of things right. It's got coilovers. They got rid of, because usually a lot of times they just slap these body kits on old 74s and it's really just a clunky beat up G body underneath. But at some point, somebody spent some money and did some things right. I just think it's worn out. And no, this is not a car that I would have thrown my own money at, even though it would be kind of fun to play around with, unless it was even less money. And even though I won this bid, I am frankly kind of surprised. I kind of thought when I made that bid, I was like, oh man, I'm crazy. This thing's going to stall out at like 39 or something like that. But there it is. The Nerd Herd was kind of, they were pretty bearish on it too. I mean, I don't think anyone was higher than, what was it, 54 was the highest bid from George? I don't know. Yeah. What do you guys think? Is this, would you risk Frankenstein 993 turbo wannabe with your own money? Is there a number that you'd try it out, or would be like, there's just no way? Let us know in the comments. And actually, before we get to the next car, kudos to the seller for letting this thing go and not having ridiculous expectations that this was an 80 or 90 or 100,000 plus car, because the type of person that owned this car, and just by looking at their arm with the bad tattoos and the way they drove, makes me think that they're idiots. So it is the kind of thing where I would expect them to have really unrealistic expectations, and they didn't. They actually sold the car and got decent money for it. So let us know what you think of the results. And what was the last car we talked about on the last episode?
All right, JP, we had a really cool Alfa Romeo on here, a 1974 Alfa Romeo GTV that was built by Alfaholics. JP, this car sold on Bring a Trailer in February of 2020 for $50,000 to a bidder named H Pattern. H Pattern then sent the car off to England to be redone by Alfaholics with bodywork, interior, suspension, and most importantly, a 230 horsepower, 2-liter twin cam, twin plug motor. And they spent 202,000 British pounds, which is approximately $265,000. So that's $310,000 without the trip to England and back. By air freight, that could be another $25,000 or more. So a ton of money was spent on this car and invested. Then back in November of 22, they sold the car on Bring a Trailer for $316,000. And the guy who bought it in November of last year, 11 months later, is bringing the car back to market where it rode as a premium alumni listing on Bring a Trailer. And that's where we come in, JP, to take a look at this car. So spectacular performance for an overachieving little car. But the guy who made out is the guy who spent probably 330, 340, drove it for a couple of years, and then sold it for $310,000. He's the one that won, $316,000. But now this guy who's in it, $321,000, he's trying to get off of the car, JP. And I thought that this car would stall out at $254,000. You took the under at $250,000. The car hammered for $270,000, where it failed to sell on 32 bids. JP, I don't know if I can just say with a straight face, this guy should have taken the money and just absorbed his $50,000 bath. Personally, I'd rather just hang on to the car a little longer and find the right way to sell it. So I'm not surprised that he didn't let it go for that number. But I just think it's surprising that he thought he could get his number from it, which I'm assuming is probably really close to $295,000, $300,000. Seems to me like he was about $25,000 or $30,000 short. I'd rather hang on to the car and wait and see if I can, get more money later down the road. There's just not many of these cars in the United States. I know they're overpriced for what they are, but they have a massive international following. So JP, this guy, he didn't sell out, man. He dug, he died on that hill and he still owns the car. I'd say he's got a firm grip on it for the short term, but I think down the road, he might be able to get his 300 out of it, and he gets to enjoy this car for another season or two. What do you think?
Yeah, should have let it go. I don't see this car doing any better anytime soon, especially now that there's kind of a track record of this car kind of going down and down. There's just so few buyers for something this obscure. I'm sure it's a great car. It sure looks neat. Like I said on the last episode, I totally reject the idea that these Alfaholics guys are the singer of Alpha, unless you go with the idea that, well, Alphas are shitty. So the version of singer would be a shitty version. I mean, they don't finish the trim. There's all kinds of I don't get it. Love this car. This would be like such an awesome car if it were like 85 grand or something like that. But six figures, get out of here with this thing. There's about a billion other cars on the list before this thing even, like, this doesn't even enter the radar. But what am I thinking? Am I just totally wrong here? Let us know what you guys think. This seller should have come to Jesus. He is going to be, this is a rough one. All right, let's make some predictions. We've got a list of cars we want to talk about, and we will right after this. Hey guys, I got to tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you got to call our friend Steve at Godden. This guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. That's right. I've got an Our Smiths Aviera watch on right now that we will be giving to one of you lucky Nerd Herd members as soon as we figure out how we're going to do it. But we do have some ideas, so we will be giving this watch away. I did send one of my personal watches out to Our Smiths just last week. He got it like that, man. And they're servicing one of my fine Swiss watches. So as soon as I get that one back, then maybe we'll go ahead and figure out how to get this one out. So Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. All right. Our good friends at God and Porsche. Man, I got to get up early in the morning tomorrow. We are going out to Boulder City and doing a photo shoot with a bunch of the classic cars. So I don't even know which cars I'm shooting. It's going to be early in the morning. I'm going to be out there with Mikey and Steve, and we're going to be driving some cool stuff tomorrow morning. So I'm looking forward to that, taking some pictures. Love those guys at God and Classic. All right. Have sellers come to Jesus? Are sellers finally getting the message that the market's cooled off and it's time to get real with your reserves? We have some predictions to make. We've got a great list of cars. The first one is a car that my partner is representing personally. What is this first car and just let's get to it. What do we got, Michael D?
All right, JP, our good friend Rafi from the pit stop in Brisbane has asked me to represent a 1968 Fiat 2300S Coupe. JP, I have owned more than a dozen Fiats with my dad over the years, and even I didn't know what this car was before Rafi bought it a couple of years ago. So JP, what we're talking about is a Ghia body design coupe with a Fiat and Abarth tuned straight six that has dual Weber carburetors and a 4-speed manual transmission. This was easily Fiat's most luxurious sort of coupe. This would be the car that a junior vice president would drive to work in, Turin or Milan or whatever, some other parts of Europe. Apparently, these cars are very popular in Germany. These cars were never brought to the States. They only made them for a few years, but it's a very, very beautiful design. At the time, one of the chief designers working for Ghia in the late 60s was a guy named Buono. So some of you may be familiar with the Ferrari 250 Buono. That was penned by Mario Buono. And so he worked for Ghia for a little while. And then shortly after he made this car for Fiat, Fiat hired him away from Ghia, and Buono headed up Fiat's own internal Centro Stile, which was sort of their central design house. So when they had any bespoke sort of cars for their high-end clients, cars that were done like one-offs and concept cars, he was doing all that stuff. He also penned the Fiat 124 Coupe, which I've owned probably 5 of in my lifetime. I did not know that Buono had done that until I read about this car. So it's kind of an interesting provenance. JP, this is a very robust, very reliable straight six, but because the car was never sold in the States, if you're going to run a car like this beyond, say, your monthly Cars and Coffee and a regional all-Italian car show, if you're really going to go out and drive this car, getting parts can be tricky. So you'd want to have a line on Italian parts from the 1960s, either directly to Italy or in Germany, where several of these cars were sold, and many of them are still on the road today. In the United States, JP, I imagine there's less than a handful of these things stateside. They were never brought here, and very few people would have known about them and brought them in because they were not performance cars. This is a Grand Touring car, not a sports car. It's achingly beautiful, and the interior is so gorgeous. I actually think it upstages Ferraris from that same period, which is a safe thing to say. It's a red vinyl interior, but JP, I've sat in the car a bunch of times and I honestly thought it was leather. It's so nice, even to the hand. So John, Rafi ran this car with a $45,000 reserve back in February, and the car was only bid to $27,250. And he had some kids that work for him. He sort of turned them loose. He's like, here, go get me my money for his car. And I think he thought that the market was strong enough to support that. And we have a comp in this country. A black one of these sold a few years ago for $50,000. But this car didn't even come close. So 7 months later, Rafi has turned to me and he said, hey, can you get rid of the car for me? And so I've got the car listed. It is running with the reserve, but it's very reasonable. And it's just a really pretty car. If you collect Fiats, if you collect Italian cars from this era, this is a car that even Fiat guys don't know what it is. If you want to have the car that is really beautiful and gets lots of attention, and yet nobody knows what it is, I have your car waiting for you right now, and it runs really well. Yuri drove this car this summer to LA and back for Maccanisma 2, which was down by the LA River. And it was an all Italian car, motorcycle, and bicycle show. He drove it down to Maccanisma and back with his buddy John, and John drove the 131, and they traded back and forth. So I have some driving video included in the listing that is Yuri and John on the road. So cool car. Not a lot of people in the market looking for old Fiats from this era, especially, coach built ones like this. But JP, if you collect cars and you don't need to drive it, here's one you've never heard of, and it's not going to break the bank. So what do you think? Any love for something like this?
Well, I mean, we know that when Rafi has a car, he usually does his magic. There's whatever car you're looking at, whether or not it just doesn't matter what car it is. If it's something that Rafi has touched, it's that more, plus it's more than that. It's that, but more so. Can you tell me about anything that Rafi has done to this car, or has he just cleaned it up? I mean, has he massaged it? Does it have that Rafi touch to it?
No, this car is still running basically stock. It's got some updated tires and conies or something that it might not have come with. But this car basically could be entering a concours and place because of its originality. So Rafi bought this car, and I was thinking he probably wanted to sell it to somebody and spruce it up. And if Rafi would have rebuilt the motor, he'd get 100 horsepower per liter out of it, and add 100 horsepower to whatever's under the hood now. But he never did that, and he's just looking to get rid of the car. So no, but Rafi has gone through it and tuned it and maintained it for the last 2 years. And as I said, Yuri drove the car back unconsciously, just took it down to LA and back. And I just wouldn't. I would have thought that would have been a much bigger deal, and they made it look easy. So kudos to the level of maintenance and service that's gone into the car.
This car just looks like it belongs in a garage in Monterey or in Nantucket or, the Hamptons or whatever. If you want to be classy, but don't want to spend literally $300,000 to get something that looks as classy as this, I think it's pretty dang spectacular. I don't know if it's something that I would want, but what do we think this is going to bring? Are you going to bid on this, or do I got to do this thing?
No, you bid on it, JP. I'm going to stay out of it. But it went to 27,200 last time around. Obviously, we're hoping it brings a little bit more than that. But I think this time around, we're in that neighborhood with regards to the reserve. So we're just trying, Rafi's just trying to move the car and make room to bring in a slightly more important project. Whatever the next car is more important for Rafi. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to bring, look, it just kind of depends. When does this close? That's the other thing.
It closes tomorrow. Closes tomorrow.
Okay. Monday's a good day. And I think, it's
at 15,300 now, and that's on 8 bids. And so I'm hoping that we get, we can put another, whatever, on top of it.
Sure. I would love to drive this down, Vegas Boulevard. I mean, with your best girl beside you, this is just and rolling up to the casino. I mean, it's got that almost like Aston Martin. I know it's not British, but it's just, man, this thing oozes class. I mean, for 30 grand, why wouldn't someone be? What are you going to get that's this bespoke and old and classic and vintage and just absolute showstopper? I mean, the Vegas Concours is coming up, and this is the kind of car that you would see there. All the cars out there are like $1 million cars, and I think this car would absolutely fit in that environment. So I'm going to say somebody sees this, and hopefully the people, BAT is a great place to get exposure for something like this. I'm going to say $30,000, and I hope you guys do a lot better than that. But I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and say, I mean, for 30 grand, what the hell else could you possibly get that's as badass as that? All right, what do you guys think? Yeah. Looks like the nerd herd is with me on that. Yeah.
We talked about this at the end of the last show, and I asked the nerd herd to go out and comment on the car to create some engagement. I just want to thank the handful of people that did that. A couple of people mentioned Bid Nerds. And what's awesome is the handles on BAT, I don't know who's who. So I'm blindly responding to people who I feel like I know, but they've all got masks on. So it's kind of funny. But thank you to everybody. And anybody who wants to do that again tonight or first thing in tomorrow morning, I would really appreciate it. Any kind of comment you leave gives me an opportunity to engage with the people. And we'll just create a little bit of buzz for the car as we head into the close tomorrow, just before 2 p.m. here locally. So thank you to the herd. Love you guys. And
yeah, guys. Hey, I love it when we can mobilize the herd, guys. Do Deeb a solid. Get over there in the listing and make a comment about the car. That would be really awesome. It'd be awesome for the channel. It's again great when you guys talk about nerds on BAT listings, because that always invariably winds up bringing people over here. It happens constantly, so we love seeing that. So go ahead and go over to this listing and make a comment, and go ahead and give us a like or a thumbs up while you're at it, guys. A lot more of you watching than there are thumbs up. I know we kind of suck, but give the nerd herd a thumbs up. Give a thumbs up to the folks who are hanging out with you and making it a good time on a Sunday night. Don't give us it's not a thumbs up for us. It's a thumbs up for the herd, man. All right.
Chris Carbine, by the way, is sitting in his seat at a Black Crowes concert watching Bid Nerds on his phone, and Ann took a photo like coming up behind him. He's at the concert and he's watching Benders on his phone, and Ann took a photo of him over his shoulder and sent it to me. Those two are the best. I love you guys. Have fun at the concert. Chris, put your phone away.
That is proper nerd herding right there, guys. Yeah, all right, let's get back to it. I think look, I'm not gonna. I actually know what the reserve on this car is, and I'm not going to reveal it, but I will say that I know that the seller is reasonable here, and I think that's what you have to be in order to sell a car on BAT or Cars and Bids or P-Car Market. What's the next car on the list, and do we think that this seller has reasonable expectations? This ought to be an interesting one.
All right, JP. So what do you want to do, the Vet or the Porsche?
Let's go with the Porsche.
All right, let's go. So we're going to have dessert first. JP, yeah. During my Monterey Car Week, I went up to say hi to the guy that you and I met in Pforzheim, Germany, when Porsche Classic flew us out so that you could present Der Fascination to the Global Classic Roundtable. And we met this really great kid named Nick, who works at Porsche Monterey. He heads up their parts department. So I stopped by to say hi to Nick at the Porsche dealer in Monterey during Car Week, and we walked a lot together. And in the shop, in the back corner, was this stunning 1992 Porsche 964 Carrera RS NGT. Don't ask me what NGT stands for, and I should know this because we're nerds, but the NGT was their club sport version of the car. In other words, the roll bar and the Recaros and the lack of carpet, all the things that you see in this car that make it a track car, that all came from Porsche's Weissach department. This is a race car that happens to be street legal in Europe and was never sold in the United States. Our car is showing, JP, are you ready for this? 14,706 kilometers, which means it's barely got 9,000 miles on it. John, when I looked at all these cars that he had, and he had some doozies. He had a couple of 996 GT3s, and he had one of the nicest Guards Red G50 Carreras I've ever seen in my life. This car, you know, it's kind of dreamy in ruby stone. It's kind of dreamy that it's a club sport. It's kind of dreamy that it's got low miles. But like, to see this car in person, it's as if my dad had the car, because you could eat off the engine, you could eat off the floor in the pedal box. Like, it was so clean and so brand new and so perfect that, like, I'm standing there with Nick, and I like Nick. Nick's a really nice kid, and he's the most unpretentious person like you've ever met. And I'm standing there with him, and I'm looking at this car, and I look back at Nick, and it was just one of those, like, F you, man. Just F you, and F this dealership, and F all your great cars. I don't even want to play. I got to go back and get in my crappy 84 Carrera and drive home. I'm sorry I stopped by. This was a huge mistake. I never should have called. You know what I mean? It was like getting back together with an old girlfriend. I felt so dirty afterwards. It was awful. This car, John, was just so out of reach. I was just like, oh my God. It is spectacular. And it's not meant to be a fluff piece. I love 964s. You know, I met JP right at a moment when 964s stopped being like a punchline and became serious collector cars. And from that moment on, like JP and I have this like love-hate relationship with 964s because they were the car. Like in grade school, nobody talked to this girl, and now she's a supermodel, and I can't afford to have a conversation with her, and it really bothers me. You know what I mean? So it's a very interesting relationship that I think real Porsche guys have with this model, and this is, John, by the numbers, this is the best of the best. I don't know how many RSs they made. It will be probably less than 20% of them are actual NGTs, which is their version of the Club Sport. And how many of those are Ruby Stone and how many of those weren't actually raced and are basically just perfect and on a California title down in Monterey, and you could buy one this week. This is an interesting moment if you're a crazy collector. If there's two crazy collectors out there, this car should completely reset the market and turn it on its head, because this car ticks every box of what the collector guys are looking for. Porsche has, much to my chagrin, re-released Ruby Stone, and it's a color that you can buy on GT3s and GT4s. And I think that they are diluting their own brand by doing that. I don't know why. Like, if it just remains a paint to sample color, that's great. But to offer it as a regular range color, I think you're going to start to jump the shark here very soon. But this is sort of the model that made the color, you know, enviable. And this car is the best I've ever seen. So, John, I don't know. He told me what they were asking for the car, and I just remember choking on that number. They're looking for a ton of dough for this car, but the old adage is, go find me another one. They might just get it, because this car in this condition at this specification could truly be peerless, and that's saying something. So JP, the only thing going wrong with this car is it's on P car market, but I imagine that was so they could control the narrative with the reserve. I imagine they have quite a bit invested in it, and they're looking for a big payday, but they might just get it despite the platform. So John, tell us what you like about a race car like this. No AC, no sunroof, no carpet, just pure driving bliss. This is nirvana for manual air-cooled cars. What do you think, JP?
Yep, I mean, it's spectacular. It's blue chip. It's all the perfect things. I'm not a big fan of a full roll cage in a street car, because you're not going to drive around with a helmet and your head is pretty much exposed on that roll bar that's around the top. So this is, to me, I just don't like full roll cage. Half cage, perfect. Full roll cage, what are you doing? This is dumb. Our good friend Rami is looking at a 964 Turbo in this color, and he's all excited about it, and I don't blame him. This car's just got to be spectacular to drive, but I just don't know what the hell a reputable Porsche dealership is thinking selling their classic blue chip Porsche on P-car market. I imagine that maybe they want to get quick to market or something like that, but do they need to get this thing to market that quickly? Why would a dealership like Porsche of Monterey risk their reputation selling and representing such a highline car on such a ish show platform? I think that and look, give P-car market their due. They occasionally get the money for cars, and sometimes even more than BAT. And there is the benefit of being able to get the car to market more quickly. But I just think that if you have a brand like Porsche Monterey, I just don't think it's worth the risk of having your car being represented by a bunch of guys that are like, hey, man, I'll sell you a car. I mean, these guys are used car salespeople. I just do not want that association if it were my brand. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. What's this car going to bring, Deeb?
All right, JP, lots to unpack there.
And have has this dealership, do they have reasonable expectations with such a high-end car?
Yeah, so no to that question. And is P-car market getting it done? I would not bet on them in this instance. JP, our car is currently sitting at $175,722 on just 5 bids. However, our car has 3 days until it closes. It closes on Wednesday. Again, showing 14,000 kilometers. That's just 9,000 miles. This car is spectacular. I think they're looking for something closer to $1 million than $500,000, but that's based on a very casual conversation in the garage. like 2 months ago, essentially, or a month and a half ago. I don't know what they really want. The thing that's confusing to me, JP, is even if the GM is the one that went out and bought this car for the dealership, and I believe that they own the car, if you're the dealer principal and you have a classic dealer, why are you not just keeping this car? You're never going to find another one this nice, and this is as blue chip and as A-plus collectible as there is with regards to the Porsche and air-cooled market. This is a effing unicorn. I don't even understand why this car is coming to market. John, I think that this car is probably worth north of $600,000 just because of the condition and all the boxes that it ticks. It might be 800. I really don't remember. And I didn't do any research before we went live on the show. But John, it's sitting at 175. I think it's going to tick out. I put 500 grand, but I don't think P-Car Market is even going to get 500 grand for it. I'm going to go $450,000. And here's something that might throw you for a loop. I predict that this car fails to sell, and I also predict that this car does not wind up in the deal tank. I think Porsche Classic controls the narrative, and I don't want my blue chip collectible in their classified section. I'll let you run it, that I can drop the reserve however I want. It either gets there or it doesn't. If this car fails to sell, it's taken down, and then that's it. It's in Monterey, and it just goes back in the market to their client base. I don't think this car winds up in the deal tank. I don't think we're going to see an asking price and this car hanging out to dry. Monterey never had it on their own website. They're not going to let P-Car Market do that. So I'm going to predict that it fails to sell at $450,000 to $600,000. I think they're looking for more than that. This could be, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it could be a $300,000, like $750,000 car. But I sneakily suspect that this car doesn't wind up in the deal tank, and it's crickets after the hammer. So JP, what's your number? I'll give you $450 to work with. Where are you going to come in?
Yeah, I agree with you that it fails to sell. I think that's a very interesting take. And it goes right with what I was saying before. Why would you want your brand associated with P-Car Market, and why would you want this blue chip car in a classified ads that you don't control? I mean, this is the kind of car that you want associated with your brand. Absolutely. So why wouldn't you want this all over your social media and your website and all of those things? I think this car fails to sell for sure. I don't think this car even breaks 300,000. I don't think it breaks 400,000. Sorry. Hell, I don't even know if it's going to break $300,000. It's just, it's not that it's not worth that. I think people are so sick and tired of wasting their time on P-Car Market because they know the reserves are always ridiculous. This is a blue chip car. Will people take a stab at it? I guess. I don't know. I'm going to go $300,964. And, yeah, that's it. And say it fails to sell for sure. So that's $300,964, not $300,096.40 or anything like that.
Yeah, got you. Thank you for that. So JP, we got bids all over the place.
Yeah.
It looks like the low bid is Chad at 330, and then we've got a couple in the 600s. Kevin is at 630. And who did I see else? I thought, Anthony's at 625. Several in the 300s, 400s, 500s, and 2 in the 600s. So yeah, bids are all over the place. JP, a car like this, personally, if you ask me, should not have gone to P-Car Market. It should not be in an online auction. This car should have been on their classic display, just garnering Instagram likes. And then they should have done a whole marketing campaign leading up to Barrett Jackson in Scottsdale, Arizona. This car should have gone to Arizona, and it should have been at RM Sotheby's. And I don't think they're doing themselves any favor by listing a car of this magnitude with P-Car Market. The only way that this works is if it sells. And they could do it. It could happen. Absolutely. It could happen. And we'll be like, well, we eat crow. But I wouldn't put any money on them doing it. This is really niche, and I think they want a lot of money for it. And I don't know that P-Car can get this. They can, but I don't think they will.
Unlikely, but that's just us. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. And this will definitely be an interesting one to watch because there's, like you said, a lot to unpack. So it'll be very interesting to see the results on the next episode. Okay, we still have another car. What do we got?
All right, JP, let's take a quick peek at our 2023 Chevrolet Corvette Z06 convertible equipped with both the 3LZ and the Z07 packages. JP, our car is listed on Bring a Trailer out of Hudsonville, Michigan, showing 3,600 miles. It's an 8-speed dual clutch transmission, so this is going to have paddles and an 8-speed. It's not going to have the 7-speed manual, which is kind of a bummer. John, over the course of AutoFest, Vegas AutoFest in September, on the Sunday after, I got to drive one of Rami's Porsches and go on a drive, and Matt's father, I think it's Jim or John, was in his blue Z06, and I was behind him for a while. And in one of Rami's cars, I was sort of able to keep up, and listening to this car at 8,000 RPM, doing those 2 to 3 and 3 to 4 gear upshifts, it just sings. I mean, what a missile these cars are. Pretty badass, pretty awesome car. I was stunned. It just sounded so good when he went flying by. He's a good driver. The car, we make fun of Corvettes all the time, but this latest Z06 is a world-beating supercar. And to run with one for a while was an absolute treat. There'll be plenty of them, at car shows, and you'll see them on the boulevards. But to go be with one in an environment like that out at Lake Mead where we could, cruise at like triple-digit speeds and stuff, it was you can't even. I wasn't even in the car, and I walked away impressed. So when I look at this car, I knew it was the real deal, but I have sort of a newfound respect for one. Miss me with the wing. I don't really like the color. It's kind of a Riviera blue, but Riviera blue looks good on an air-cooled, 90s car. It doesn't look right to me with shiny black wheels and yellow calipers on a Chevrolet Corvette. And then absolutely miss me with that interior. I think there are better ways to equip your Z06 convertible, but that's subjective, and that's why we're all car guys, because we all have opinions. Unbelievable performance envelope. It's got a couple of miles, so the guy drove it. I couldn't tell you, JP, if this car would bring more money if it were manual or not. I think that's an interesting conversation to have. This isn't a vintage Vet or a vintage Ferrari or even a vintage Porsche for that matter. This is a contemporary Corvette, and it's still available with a 7-speed manual, I think. And if
It's
they're
not.
still available,
It's not.
I don't think anybody's. Oh, it's not. Oh, it's not. So maybe it would. Did they ever bring this model with the manual, or with all the Z06?
None of the C8s
all
have
paddles.
manuals, unfortunately.
Okay. So yeah, well then it's a moot point because it's not even available with a manual. So there you go. Flappy paddles, blue leather. JP, I do think they were bringing a premium, but I think that's for cars that were still on the wrapper. This one's been driven, and it's got blue seats. And I just think, man, when you equip your car, if you think you're going to sell it, you got to equip it just a little bit like the next guy want. You can't do stuff like blue leather that's going to be so polarizing. It's going to be hard for you to sell the car. There might be one person out there that likes it as much as you do, but if you're auctioning the car, you need 3 people to love that. And I don't think there's 3 people in the country that love blue leather. So I think he's going to have a hard time getting the premium some other people have got for basically brand new Z06 convertibles in the secondary market. And this is not. This one's used. So this is just a used car to me with a high performance envelope. So JP, I send it back to you. What do you think of this POS?
Oh well, there you go. Don't poison the well there. You love a Corvette. Come on. I mean, Buddha says it. This is the New Balance, special car. The sensibilities are just so awful. This thing is just hideous to look at from every angle. I wanted to like the C8, but it's one of these cars that it looks like the designer was paid by the radius. Oh, we could put a curve here. Oh, we could put a curve there. We could get a curve here. Look at that. It's like my paycheck just got really big. They're undeniably great, though. I mean, it's like if you didn't have to look at it, it's fantastic. And it's so close to looking great. I mean, it's a mid-engine car. It'd be so easy to make something like this look great, but instead it just comes off as just crazy, tacky, jet ski style sensibilities. It just looks like a Wave Runner from 1995. This is just absolutely ridiculous. And I wouldn't, if I won this car, I wouldn't even drive it. But I do think people love these, and and they are wanted. And it'll be interesting to see what Gerd says, because he works at a dealership where they still sell these. Are these still hard to get, Gerd? Are these still vehicles that people are lining up and paying extra for, or can you actually get one? Oh my God! The more I look at this interior, look at that interior. What the hell were they thinking? I do like the color. I think the color looks great on exotic cars, but it's just like a color like this, a little goes a long way, and they went all the damn way and went past it and went all the way around, and they're back again. They went so far with the blue. Stop. Just freaking stop, man. I want to yell at whoever designed this thing. Okay, what's it going to bring?
Oh, man. I wish Gerd would bid first. Gerd, put your bid in so I can do my bid. So, JP, I do think that these cars initially, or the ones that have essentially delivery miles, if you had to wait or pay crazy premiums at the dealer, all right, let me back up a minute. Our car is currently sitting at $113,500. It closes tomorrow, and the $113,000 is by way of just 5 bids. JP, the sticker price for this car, I had it here for just saying it was $150,000, basically $51,500. My recollection is that the first of these things were trading the secondary market for over $200,000. So in other words, they were getting $50,000 over sticker in the secondary market, but those are for delivery mile cars. This is not that. This has nearly 4,000 miles on it. So there's some wear on the tires, some wear on the brakes, and there's going to be a few stone chips on the front of this thing. And so I just don't think he's going to come anywhere near that. JP, oh boy. I really wish Gerd would bid, because I have no idea. I'm going to say that it probably still brings sticker, but no premium after that. So I'm going to go $155,000. And I'm not sure that it sells. I 155. If it got to my number, I'd say that he should take the money, and so it should sell. But I'm not confident that it gets to my number, because I just don't know what these are worth when they actually have miles on them. I don't think they're impossible to get. So, why would you pay a premium? So more than $4,000, I would say. Yeah. So 155 to you, JP. It's stickered for 151. What's your bid? I'm really confused. I'm going to
totally cheat, because Gerd did hop in here while you were.
Oh, you sucker!
So I'm going to go. He says 146. Yeah, I'll go 145. I'll go a little under him.
You little bastard.
Yeah. I'm glad you couldn't stop pontificating about this car, because it bought me time. Thanks, Gerd. You want here. I like what Duncan says. He's like, I like a Wave Runner from 1995. Bro, I'd rather have a Wave Runner from 1995 than this stupid looking car. I think it was, I don't know if it was it Buddha that said it? If this car were all black, it would really hide a lot of just the horrible design features or design sensibilities of this car. It would just soak it up. It's kind of like a Porsche 996, the interior. If it's not all black, you can see how horribly 90s it is, with the weird horseshoe shapes on the dash and the goofy lines all over the place. But when it's all black, it actually looks pretty good, because you can't see the bad sensibilities. This car in this striking blue just shows everything wrong with what the designers were thinking when they penned this poor car. What an amazing ride, but oof, dang, ugly. Look, we've got a little extra time. No, we don't. I was going to say we could cover that Speedster, the Lotus thing.
No.
Now we're out of here, guys. All right, the show is done. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. That is another nerd show. Mercy says, give us a thumbs up, share the show, let people know the Nerd Nation is here and you are part of it. Be a proud member of it, and let everybody know that they should become part of the Nerd Herd and join us live on Wednesdays and Sunday nights. We will be back Wednesday, and we'll do it again. We'll see if we can answer that question. It'll be really interesting looking at the results of these auctions. Did the sellers come to Jesus? Have they really figured it out? Let's find out. We'll see you Wednesday, guys. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden, this guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas.